Hello, I'm Rebecca, the founder of triiyo, and welcome to Pep Talks with triiyo. triiyo is the leading solution for workplaces to support their people during every life transition, from starting a family to retiring and every life event in between. On Pep Talks with triiyo, we chat to our expert partners for advice on how to best navigate these common, complex, and often messy life stages that happen during our working career. Keep listening as we connect the dots between life and work with the simple aim of education and empowerment. After all, life happens at work. Today on Pep Talks with triiyo, we're speaking with Anne Marie Cade of Divorce Right. She is a lawyer, mediator, and divorce coach with extensive experience in conflict resolution. We're going to be discussing the need for specific support for employees to assist them navigate the challenging life event of divorce. Anne Marie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here today, Rebecca.
Pleasure. Really good to see you again. Firstly, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
So, as you said, I have a legal background and I have started working with clients, providing them with holistic support that they need to actually navigate a challenging process like divorce, so that they have the confidence, the clarity, and the insights to manage that process in a way that enables them to maintain control of their lives.
Yeah. Well, I've been through divorce myself, so I know it can be an extremely stressful period that can potentially take over a significant percentage, and time of your life. So if we just sort of look at the high level research first, there's been a lot of research recently on divorce in Australia. Could you give us a snapshot of these statistics?
The statistics are actually quite startling and more so post-COVID. So the recent statistics that were released showed that there had been a 13% increase in the rate of divorces since 2020. And there were around 56,200 divorces in 2021. So something we should remember is that 50% of divorces or people that go through divorce have children under the age of 18. So the impacts can be quite severe if that process is actually not handled well.
Yeah, that's a significant increase, isn't it? And I'm guessing that's a lot to do with the lockdowns and families being out of their routine and stuck together, working, homeschooling at home, which is, I'm guessing has triggered that increase or contributed to the increase.
For sure. And I think that could be significantly more as well, because we're talking divorces here. So there are people in relationships and those relationships break down. You're not going to have all those statistics down pat. So it is quite significant. And the impact in the workplace can be quite severe as well, because someone who's going through divorce, it wreaks havoc in your life. The statistics again are quite startling in that there are high rates of absenteeism, presenteeism. There's reduced productivity, lost working time, reduced employee retention, poor mental health. Recently, there has been statistics released in the UK, where around 90% said that their work had been adversely affected. And 95% said their mental health had been affected. And of the people surveyed, 75% said they were less efficient, and 40% took time off. So that is really significant.
That's huge. So we've got higher numbers of people divorcing. So what I'm hearing is that doesn't cover people who have separated. That's actually just the divorce number.
Yes.
You have to be separated for a year before you even can apply for a divorce. So actually, like you say, the separation number could be significantly higher. And at that point of separation or leading up to separation, the effects of an individual and therefore them as an employee within a workplace would also already be the effects would have already been started, in terms of their stress levels, their mental health, things like that. So in terms of individuals within the workplace, because this is obviously what we absolutely support within, with our journey, is how do we hold the hand of the employee through these life events that happen at work? How can we help them from a broader holistic perspective, looking at all of the other areas beyond the actual event that it impacts, such as mental health, and their productivity and efficiency at work. When you're working with your clients, or, what does research say? What can organizations do to help employees? What can employees or individuals do to help themselves through this? Because it is incredibly stressful. And when you're going through something like this for the first time, you have no idea really what you're doing or where to go. Sometimes it can be a complete shock. So what are the steps that individuals should really take to, outside of sort of looking at a lawyer or a mediator, what are the other things that people can do to help themselves through this phase?
And that was a great point you raised about the impact on in the workplace, because the Harvard Business Journal actually has done research, and it shows that employees' productivity is affected up to about 40%, but that can be over a period of 3 years. From the time they're thinking of divorce or they separate, through the period that they are going through their divorce, which is possibly around 1 year, and 1 year after divorce. So that is quite significant. And I think what's really important is there are policies in place in the workplace to support those who have gone through bereavement, who have actually had other issues around if there's parental leave that's necessary. But with divorce, I don't think employees are getting that specific help that is needed to help them get through this. And it impacts every area of your life. It impacts you, your extended family, your children, your finances. And it is a time when you have to actually ensure that you have a regular income. So, your earning capacity is significantly affected if you're not able to function. It is very apparent that, and there's research again backing this, that if the divorce or that process is actually managed properly, you mitigate the damage, and it will not derail you professionally. So what I found was, when I worked with professionals going through divorce and separation, they were very lost. These were very high functioning people, but when they were faced with the challenge of a family or relationship breakdown, they found that they could not cope with what was happening. There's so much life admin, the additional stress of actually having to do the single parenting, all that is tied in. And sometimes I would get calls at very late at night from professionals and executives who really did not have the time to possibly devote to, instruct their lawyers properly or think through this process. And as a result, they don't really get the really great help they need, because it seems like they're rushing through the process. So from the perspective of how the employer can help these employees, I think it's very important to start that education process and make resources available to your employees, and have services of coaches and psychologists available to them who are actually trained to manage clients who are going through divorce. I think that is key, that specific help where the professionals who are assisting the employees really understand what is involved in the relationship, in a breakdown of a relationship. So that might mean, so it's the holistic support. So helping them with life admin, with, all that complex paperwork. Sometimes I find that I am knee deep in paperwork with when assisting some of my clients, because in a relationship, what often happens is one person takes on the role of maybe the homemaker, or they look after the finances, the other takes on the role of doing certain other things. And I've had clients sometimes who are at such a loss, they don't really know where to start. Even to open a bank account can be a challenge. So I find myself wading through all this paperwork, trying to help them, gather all that paperwork, because they're going to need all of that for that legal process, which will come later. But I think before they even get to that, they need to have a really great understanding of the options available. Get more coaching and education around co-parenting to reduce the conflict, I think is very, very important, because I talk about a relationship breakdown as the reframing of that relationship. When you have children, you go from husband and wife to co-parents, and that relationship is going to continue for the rest of your life. And you're going to have to engage with your partner, in that capacity as parents. So when you start the process right, I think you can mitigate a lot of that damage.
Before we go on to the sort of conflict resolution, because that's super interesting, it just sort of struck me that actually when you're looking at the type of the demographic of employees going through divorce, typically they're going to be on the upward trajectory of their career, or potentially in leadership positions, because that's just by nature of, by the time you've got married and maybe you've had a child or two, or at some point you're going to be, you've had a marriage and then you're going through a divorce. So you're naturally going to be on an upward or at the top of your career. So that impact actually to the individual is going to be significant. And I can see how it would affect them from a stress and mental health perspective, because you'd be super conscious that you're not performing at the level that you normally expect of yourself. So that would be added pressure. Really, really hard. And then if as you say, if you're an individual that hasn't been across the whole suite of sort of life, because you've been in a partnership and you, fair enough, have taken your individual roles within that partnership, you're potentially going to feel like the rug's being pulled from underneath you, and you've now got to learn this whole new, budgeting, or getting a mortgage, or going through a rental process and moving, and then you add children into it. And if the co-parenting, I co-parent as well, and it requires, once you're into the rhythm, then it's fine. And with younger children, it's super hard. As they get a bit older, it does get a bit easier because they can do a lot more things themselves. And you're right, the impact that happens to life when people are going through this, and the adjustment and the re-identity that they have to go through, to then be able to show up in work and perform and be productive and happy, is incredible pressure. And I can see how it can really impact the workplace. And you're absolutely right. When you're going through all of this, the last thing that you want to think is that my job is at risk, because not only have you got all of this to deal with, you need to have that stable job and the stable income to pay for your mediator, your counselling, or psychologist, which I highly recommend, whether it's a divorce coach or your lawyer, someone somewhere in this partnership, unless you're going to go through the nesting process of staying in the same home, and one person, the family staying there, and one person each week or whatever it is transitioning out. There is a huge amount of expenses to set up two homes, and to split a home and to set up a second home. So the need to feel that there is the one thing that remains stable and secure in my life is my job has such a profound, positive impact on an individual through a phase that is incredibly stressful. And I agree that organizations should really try and recognize how they can help stable a ship through what is incredibly stormy seas, which can then have a really positive impact on the organization, on the team, and the business as a whole.
You're so right, because for myself, I found, and I'm a lawyer and a mediator, and when I went through my own divorce, I felt like I had been hit by a train, and I was running a law firm at the time and doing a few other things, and I did access the employee assistance schemes, but the need or the help I needed, I did not get, because I needed that specific help. I needed someone to handhold me through this process. I needed that objective thinking partner. And that sort of help can be costly, and maybe people are not going to reach out for it. But if employers provide that sort of holistic help, it makes life so much easier, and the impact is reduced. And they are going to be able to function and co-parent and maintain control of their lives and ensure they're still performing. So that's why I'm so passionate about the fact that employers should be providing that specific help for employees, because the statistics are horrendous. And what's happening is there's recent research in Australia where managers, there was research conducted among managers, and there were 97% of managers who reported that they had to help a team member through a challenging life situation. 75% of them said that the type of support they had to provide had increased after COVID. 80% reported not having training and being at quite a loss when they were required to do this. And 50% of the managers who were surveyed said that it actually having to do that impacted on their own stress levels. So employers need to be providing teams with education and training on how to actually talk to team members, because it's a very delicate issue, but it is something that can be learned, and it will, be such a great sort of adjunct to what they're already providing their employees. And levels of employee retention are going to be that much higher, because if an employee finds that you're giving them this sort of support when they're going through a life crisis like divorce, they're going to be so grateful.
Absolutely. I can categorically tell you that when you're going through the doors, the last thing you want to be doing is thinking about finding another job. You really want to stay where you are and get the support you need. Yeah. And I agree, it's super important that organizations do help their managers to support their people through this event for the benefit of the manager and the employee, but also for the broader perspective that organizations are then going to be positioning themselves as open and transparent to collectively be supporting people through life events at work, which is super important. And that's really, if I just look at what we are attempting to do with our divorce journey, you don't know what you don't know. So being able to get the advice that you need at the beginning of the process, instead of just going, I need a lawyer, I'm getting divorced, I'll see you in court. This is, what else? What are the things that we can, do? How else can we hold people's hand and try and increase awareness, increase the support, and give them a steady, logical process to go through that can potentially mitigate the negative effects of what happens by going sort of straight to a lawyer. And I guess that's sort of one way to reduce conflict, and it is to try and get both parties on the same page. And instead of just instructing a lawyer and expecting that court is the only solution, there are many opportunities before that point, but people don't often know what are the steps that are available to me? What are the options that are available to me at this point? So can you sort of talk me through, because obviously reducing conflict in this scenario will have a huge effect on somebody's mental health, their stress levels, and therefore their ability to maintain their job and do their job to a capacity that they're not worried about. If we can help people reduce conflict in this, in this life event.
So I think that's a really important question. And I think it starts very early in the piece. So employers should actually be helping their employees by providing them information on what they can do when employees start detecting cracks in their relationships, or they're having issues with a partner. There should be services or information out there on what they can actually do, who they can see, because that should I or shouldn't I question is very, very important. Sometimes people throw in the towel only because they don't know any different. But having those services available to their employees, providing information in the form of little booklets or master classes or webinars on the options that are available. There are really great services out there now, like relationship mediation, where a mediator will work with a couple to help them stay married, right? Yeah. So, and if they do decide to go down the path of divorce, they actually have the skills to navigate that process so much better. So once they have been able to talk about the process of should I or shouldn't I, and then they have made the decision, instead of rushing off to see a lawyer straight away and going down that legal path, I think employees need to be educated on what the options are that are available. So they should be getting the assistance from possibly a divorce coach, a parenting coach, to help them actually improve the communication with their former partner, because it's the breakdown in communication that causes a lot of these problems, and also to help them sort of come to grips with what has happened, so that there is that management on an emotional level. And then educate them on the options available, the alternative methods of dispute resolution, that you can try mediation, and get the coaching you need to ensure that that mediation process is successful. I think that is key, because a lot of people go to mediation, but they go in very unprepared. So teaching or having resources available to your employees on how to do that mediation properly, what they need to be aware of. So you're learning communication skills, negotiation skills, and then having people on board to assist, or managers to help your employees with navigating the life admin, and sorting out where they're going to live, helping them get a grip on the situation, and even looking for another home can be difficult. So information on how to navigate that process, I think, is really important. And then also information on what you need to do when you engage with your lawyer, what questions to ask your lawyer, how to negotiate fees with your lawyer, because that's something that you can do as well. Most people, I find, leave everything to their lawyers and then are quite overwhelmed when they get the bill at the end. But it's only because they don't know any better. So educating employees along the way, right from the beginning, and then you get your divorce, but that it doesn't end with that. Continue to get that information on how to co-parent effectively, manage your emotions in that co-parenting space, provide them with flexible work time because they've got added responsibilities, and show your employees what more they can do, and what the employees actually need from the employers. I think the conversation is also very, very important. So there is so much that employers can do to support employees right through this process.
can feel very overwhelming, can't it? I 100% agree with you around the before heading into a separation to look at ways that individuals can have counselling to stay together, caveated that there is no abuse within that relationship, and both parties are aligned to trying to make that relationship work. Because I do think one of the worst things is if a marriage is only existing when one person is working towards a common goal and one person is already checked out. That's still not going to be a healthy, happy, productive individual, parent, employee, friend, family member, that type of thing. So, you do absolutely, from a marriage counselling perspective, do require both people to be, wanting to successfully come back together, bridge that gap and move forward. From all of the things that you're saying, though, communication and negotiation skills almost top of the list, whether that's to negotiate with your partner, your children, because that's another whole conversation, sort of distilling that information down to children, your family, your friends, which can also be incredibly impactful because friendship groups can be impacted and break down. But coming out of this with all of those newfound skills, you're going to be a super great employee at the end of it.
Course.
You've got new communication skills, and as somebody who has been through this, it is not all doom and gloom. You can get through the other end. There is a whole life after divorce. And with the coaching, that piece, I think when you're through all of the nitty gritty, one of the big things that individuals need to do is to find themselves in that new identity. It's a little bit like, when you first become a parent, if you've been a professional and then you become a parent, you've got a whole new identity that you have to get to grips with. And then you go back to work and you're a parent and a professional. So you've got to find the identity as a working parent, or you've got married and you're now one of a couple, or you're a partner, and you have that name and you have that partnership, and then suddenly you go through this transition or phase, and it's a whole breakdown of your identity that you have constructed, or that you feel is part of society, and there is a huge learning and transition to go through to regain or reframe your identity. And if you have children on top of that, you then have got other labels that get attached. And I know many people that struggle with the stereotypes and perceptions that get attached to the label of single parent. And I've seen it and felt it myself. And I know it does exist, sadly, in society. But I would say that although that re-identity, the whole process can be a real stress and a real struggle, there is still, a rainbow and a pot of gold and a whole new life, and the new identity, and it is positive. There is life after the end of this journey. So it's extremely challenging. But do you have you obviously have worked with people and you can see where they start off and then they come through this whole journey, and whether it's 1 year or 3 years later or whatever it is, they are still standing and then thriving. There is a point of thriving again.
Of course. And the key to that is starting the process right. That is the key. And that's where people get it wrong. And that's where employers play such a big role in ensuring their employees start this process right. Because I look at, like I said earlier, it's reframing your family. You will always be family, right? But you're looking at it, you're reframing that family. And, I don't buy into, like you said, single parents, and they talk about broken family and the those, you have to be so careful about the language you use. You're still mom and dad. And I talk to my clients, and, at the end of the process, we don't use words like that. We actually sort of go off having learned that this was a challenge, but it didn't work out. But this is the beginning of a new chapter. Yeah. And being able to start that new chapter, having, faced your challenges and got through the process, and continuing to be there for your children and continuing that shared parenting arrangement. I think that is key because, the children are affected by the conflict. And, when there are changeovers and one parent rolls their eyes to the other parent, the kids pick up on that, and that is damaging to children. So, the fact that parents are educated on that and they're getting that information, they're less likely to do that. And they're not going to be driven by the conflict. They're going to be more mindful about how they handle that process. And they'll be amazing employees as well as amazing, single moms and dads. So I think it is the beginning of a new chapter.
Yeah. Anne Marie, I'm going to leave it there because it's a beautiful way to end our conversation. So thank you for your insights, for your advice. The statistics are sadly shocking at the moment, but there is absolutely life, and there's no, it's important that we recognise that, and it's important to recognise that employers do have the opportunity to really help their people through this challenging phase, and then come out with retaining some incredible people that have got new skills, great loyalty, and a real asset to the business. So thank you so much for talking to me. It's been lovely.
And thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. To find out more about how triiyo can support your people, visit triiyo.com.